I was looking at this earlier today. It was really like a proper Netflix series that we're putting together without having known it. Season one was a sort of a coming of age story where it was a technology that was put together by scientists and engineers dreaming big and with mixed success. And at that time, we saw that it could probably be a big thing, but it was still very much a theoretical application. And then in season two, the last one that we did, we saw that it was really coming to the fore, and things took quite a dramatic turn. I remember well seeing ChatGPT for the first time, answering a coding question, and I knew there and then things had changed forever. And so in season two, with the adolescence of these technologies, it was like a teenager, and ambitious in its thinking and even sometimes reckless. And quite a few lawyers in court were left with a red face because there was a hallucination, and a case that didn't exist was cited. And now we find ourselves in season three, where it's no longer really a question of can it do it? It's more a question of should it be done? And that's really where we are in this season, more of a focus in terms of and really why we're kicking off this debate with a talk about AI and humanity, because the technology now is getting to a point where it's very pervasive and incredibly powerful and very disruptive. And as legal minds, I think we need to now sit and reflect and see how do we take this forward, what's happening internationally. And that's really what I'm doing this evening. Just to give you a quick rundown, the season plays out in 7 installments. You'll see in number 1, it says with catering. That's by you. You're doing that catering. But next week, you'll be pleased to know in session 2, we will in fact be having some light refreshments at the faculty. And I hope you can join us then and bring other people along. And we can make this debate a great one and learn from it. So it's always great for us to engage with you guys on these things, because we learn just as much as you do. So on to my talk, artificial intelligence and humanity. You would have seen on social media, our marketing department spun me up the burly space cadet. That's me. And yeah, let's see how we go. So here we are. Why AI and humanity? Now, I don't know if you guys follow political science or global developments, but it's important for us to have a rather sobering talk for a start. You would have seen maybe what's happening in the US and potentially how easy it is for a democracy to unravel. And in South Africa, we have to sit up straight and take note of things like this, because we do have a democracy. We have incredible inequality in our country. We have just started dusting ourselves off from the legacy of state capture. And AI is the ultimate disruptor. So as legal minds, I think it's important for us to not only look at with fascination the intersection between law and technology, but also to come to the debate with a sense of purpose, really, to take co-ownership of how South Africa must move forward in terms of dealing with this technology that is so incredibly disruptive. To kick us off, I thought let's just reflect momentarily on what has happened to us as humans in the last period of time. And we have had quite some disruption. The Industrial Revolution created a lot of social unrest as manual labor was mechanized and economies and societies were transformed. Then came along, some years later, the internet, which democratized access to information for a large part, giving people access to information instantly, where previously it would have taken long or would not have been accessible at all. And so we are now, since 2010, I would say, in a situation where we have a technology that is maturing by the month and is creating more and more challenges as it's going along, because we simply cannot keep up from a regulatory point of view with all of the new advances that are taking place. It's working at such a profound speed that for people working in this space, it is quite a dilemma. Cultural norms, regulations are lagging far behind. In South Africa, particularly, we are far behind the curve, but we're not alone in that. Many countries are grappling with what to do. Okay, so to confirm in a different sort of way, the 3 seasons that we had the beginnings of AI, where great minds like Alan Turing many years ago started to wrestle with the idea of, can computers think? Would they ever be able to get there? How would we test that? And initially, the ambitions for AI was fairly modest in trying to encode human logic, step by step, if you will. But soon enough, through all sorts of breakthroughs, artificial intelligence has matured to the point where it has escaped that sort of limited way of functioning and is now in a very unpredictable trajectory. And the real breakthrough, as we'll see when Charles Bueta presents his session, is the ability of the technology to really learn, much like the human brain works, through neural networks. And in the 2010s, thereabouts, ChatGPT 3 and other models came to the fore and showed that there was a fundamental change in what we thought these things could do. And today we are at a place where you have so-called agentic AI, instances of AI that can go and execute a task, they can act, they can plan, and they can pursue goals. I recently saw a video of someone onboarding an AI into the business to orientate it as to how it fits in and what its functions are and what the expectations of it is and how it will be managed performance-wise. So that really opened my eyes to the extent to which the technology is now developed. Let's look now. I don't want for it to be all doom and gloom, but there will be a little bit of doom and gloom because humanity is not under threat, but we have to be realistic about what this technology is going to be doing, is already doing, is going to be doing, so that we can have good responses to that. And a lot of this is, you would know this quite possibly, the issue of bias in terms of AI systems seeing patterns in training data and thereby perpetuating some level of discrimination, manipulation that can be, AI can be used to orchestrate a campaign on social media or otherwise that can influence democratic processes. It's widely documented that in the 2020 US presidential election, there was some measure of interference there, and the outcome might have been changed by that. And so also for job security, not only is manual labor or basic tasks being automated, but also that of skilled professionals, lawyers, teachers, financial advisors. We are all in the crosshairs insofar as we do work that is repetitive or easily predictable. And so all of these disruptions are coming to the economy in quick succession. There's no lag, like for instance, between the Industrial Revolution and the launch of the internet. There's no lag in terms of how these things are coming to market. Month by month, these waves of innovation are hitting our shores. So the speed is incredible. And some people, like Bill Gates, have said, well, we'll probably get to a point where some people have nothing to add to the economy. And in order to catch those people, we would have to go to universal basic income. And I mean, the idea of you not being able to add anything to the economy, you might even have, you might have enough studied or you have skills, is almost too ghastly to contemplate. We as people need purpose. We need meaningful things to do. And if we are relegated to that state, I really worry that it will really lead to much unrest and deterioration of quality of lives, for sure. And what we're also seeing as a risk while we are in the sobering moment of this talk is risk posed by weaponized AI. It's incredibly good at mimicking humans in terms of figuring out what our passwords are, in terms of phishing campaigns. So no longer do we have some sort of sweatshop that is sending emails all day long and waiting for a bite. These things can, through bots, be deployed at scale and have intelligent conversations with people in an effort to defraud them. And also, if you look at the battlefield, AI is prevalent there. In the Ukrainian conflict, it's a form of warfare. It's very much integral to that. And again, if we are considering risks posed by AI to humanity, we have to bear this into account, that these systems can cause the death of people by design. And delegating lethal decisions to machines threatens the moral link between human judgment and the use of force. Then I thought to mention also that AI is getting increasingly good at legal work. We recently had quite an intricate opinion to do, and Marie gave ChatGPT a spin, the new deep research feature, and we were quite amazed at the quality of work that came out of the tool. It was an intricate question. It ran away. It collated a whole bunch of things. It reasoned the answer. It provided all sorts of different ways in which we could argue the point, which really just brought the point home to me that, if practitioners say, "Oh no, it hallucinates. Oh no, it's not really useful," not true at all. And you take that line of thinking at your own peril. And also what we found that increasingly, I would think we certainly do, but I anticipate that other law firms do it as well, the development of custom GPT models to function in specific ways. So you can manipulate the base model to draft in a certain way, to think in a certain way, to argue in a certain way, which is incredibly useful. And where I'm going with this is the importance of independent and critical legal thought in all of this. We cannot allow ourselves to be captured, people. Human oversight remains indispensable to ensure that conclusions are contextually relevant, ethically sound, and legally robust. And if you play in that space, I believe there is always a role for a sharp mind doing legal work. But as I say, if you throw away the whole lot as not applicable or not useful, I think you do so at your own peril. Looking at how the world has responded to all of this bad news that I've just sort of given you, all these developments that are coming to the fore, exciting, powerful, but also unmitigated. That's what I meant to say. How has governments across the world responded to mitigate this wave of innovation and disruption? And so very briefly, we'll get into this more thoroughly in the next session. But in the EU, they've taken the lead, I think, in putting down a comprehensive legislative framework where they have risk levels to particular technologies. They require transparency, human oversight at certain places, and safeguards. Very much a human-centric philosophy. In the United States, I read an executive order earlier today where, unsurprisingly, the Trump administration has taken away a lot of the protections on the technology. They are very much pro-innovation, even at the cost of potentially IP rights or, for instance, in respect of training data. I don't think you can go and make a case to them. They would be very unsympathetic because they see AI as the next big thing and they want to be at the forefront of it. China, as well as one can maybe expect, is more of a state-centric approach of AI governance. There is considerations of political stability and national security and things like that. But we all know that they are investing heavily in the technology, and I think they are an international player and certainly look to be taking the lead. South Africa, as far as I know, we have a fairly mature process of thinking with some papers being published, but no draft legislation that I know of that is on the books or even being circulated for comment. Like with data privacy, I suspect we'll tend to borrow from other jurisdictions to see what sort of models we can adopt here, regulatory models. The risk in all of this is we have a race to the bottom. We have governments saying that we absolutely need this for national security, and we are going to do away with the safeguards and bring the best and most lethal AI technologies to market. And you can already see that happening to an extent in terms of what the Europeans are doing and what the Americans are doing. Now, I don't know if the Trump administration is reflective of the broader thinking in the United States, but certainly for the moment, they seem to be calling the shots, and the Senate is paralyzed in terms of bringing them to order. So, what can we do? I think each of us as certainly practitioners, but some students wanting to practice law, academics, people with legal training need to see the risks and with a sense of purpose influence outcomes in South Africa. We should prevent technocracy from developing. That's a system where the rich and the powerful and the owners of the technologies call the shots and can undermine constitutional democracies. And as I said right at the start, it's scary to see how quickly things unravel in that way. Also, social media companies coupled with AI platforms are able to influence opinion with vast reach, and we should know to be skeptical about these things, and to insist on accountability and visibility when we're taking information that's published on these platforms into account. For systems of warfare, I think it's absolutely imperative that kill decisions remain in the hands of humans. As awful as that seems, that we would build machines to kill each other, that ship has sailed. All that remains now is to say, even in terms of the Geneva Convention, that a kill decision must not be left to a robot, to an AI who has calculated that someone should die. We must remain relevant. We as humans must remain relevant, and at key moments legislate against AI acting autonomously. And here, as I say, legal practitioners and academics have a vital role in democratic societies, as we are the defenders of rights, the protectors of the vulnerable, and the architects of legal frameworks that promote justice. That's really my point for this opening session, that we have to understand we have that burden and that purpose in the way that we approach our work. So, in the face of accelerating change, lawyers must ensure that we keep the direction straight and narrow. This demands vigilance, advocacy, courage, and an unwavering commitment to human dignity and democratic values. So, in closing, technology is not destiny. Although these technologies are prevalent, are invasive, are disruptive, we can shape their impact by our own advocacy, and the decisions that we make will determine the future that we have. So it almost sounds like Bernie Sanders. Let us move forward critically, courageously, and with hope. Not skeptic. I did sketch some risks. I did mention some threats. But I think it's important that we approach these things with a positive attitude and seek to positively influence the regulatory frameworks that are adopted in South Africa with due haste. So that's my bit. Thank you, everyone. And I'm happy if anyone wants to comment, I'm happy to engage on that. Or maybe Dirk, I think you're up next. It's more your field of expertise. Maybe you have some comments for us. But thanks everyone for your attention.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, just a brief comment, and I think on some of these issues we will go into much more detail in some of the other sessions. Things are happening so fast in the world, not only the development of technology, but also in how it's used. And just two things that caught my attention today. At a Microsoft event, the CEO of Microsoft AI, one of their divisions, was delivering a speech, and one of his staff came up and disrupted the speech to claim that Microsoft is supporting the killing of civilians in Palestine, in the Israel-Palestine conflict. And she just continued with that, and he stood firm and just acknowledged that. So, I mean, these debates are real, it happens, and we as legal students, legal practitioners should be aware of those things. And the second thing I want to mention is that big announcement in Brussels today that the EU has now embarked on a new initiative, a continental-wide AI support initiative, and an attempt to really compete against the US and China as far as technology investment and development is concerned. When the EU is already the leaders on regulation side, but there was a demand that more investment needs to be done and more support for startups and research, and it seems that that is happening now.
Mm. Do you think we are, with the Trump administration, at risk for a race to the bottom, where they completely, in an unbridled way, seek innovation, seek the first position at any cost, while the Europeans have adopted a much more conservative approach with the humans involved? Do you see that those two clashing at some point?
Certainly the clashes are there already, and I think there will be more clashes inside the US as well. You see a different approach in some of the states as far as AI regulation are concerned. They're not all towing the line coming from Washington. And in Washington, it seems like the big tech giants are calling the shots, and it's not democracy that's happening there. And at some point, there will be a backlash as well in the way that they want to use technology without any guardrails, without any regulation. Simply the population will not tolerate that. And I think we see some of it already taking place.